I grew up like many people. My father had his own trauma. My father was raised in inner city Chicago in the 1950s and 60s. And I don't know that he had the skills to love his children. And it came out in anger, it came out in abuse, it came out in physical discipline, it came out in a real difficult way. So I spent most of my life really anxious and depressed. I spent most of my life really struggling. And I got to about 19 years old and I decided I wanted to end my life. And the best way I can describe this to people is I felt like I looked around and I saw everybody else's life, and this is before social media, but like everybody looked happy and joyous and they were getting hugs, and I had to go home to hell, like actual literal hell. And I just didn't want it anymore. And I was laying in my bed one day. I was in college at the time. I was laying in my bed knowing that I had about a week left to live because I knew exactly what was going to happen. And God spoke to me. Now, I don't know if you guys, I know that might sound crazy, but I don't know if you've ever had a moment, I'm a crier, so if I start crying, y'all got to forgive me. But I don't know if you've ever had a moment where you felt like God just took the wheel in this moment.
Absolutely.
So I was laying in my dorm room bed, knowing I got about a week left to live, and for whatever reason, I started thinking about the eulogy at my funeral. And I thought of all my close friends and all my teammates standing behind a podium saying things like, we didn't know he was this sad, we didn't know he was this hurt, we didn't know he was struggling this bad. And I found that to be completely unacceptable. Because what I wanted them to say was, we didn't know his dad was such an asshole. I wanted them to say, we didn't know his father was killing his soul his entire life. And in that moment, I decided to outlive my pain. And I started doing things that were unusual to me at the time. I started making decisions about boundaries. If my father's trying to kill my soul, I need to protect myself from that person. So I started giving my father boundaries. And when he didn't obey those boundaries, I did not allow myself to talk to him. I changed my major from marine biology to psychology because I wanted to understand the human mind. I started to envision a future where there was no pain, because once you make the decision that I'm going to outlive this pain, then I also have to define what that day looks like. How will I know that I've outlived this pain? And I got so excited. For the first time in my life, I was happy. My circumstances hadn't changed, but for the first time in my life, I was in control, I was on a mission, I was on a purpose. And I got so excited about how this was causing me to heal. Literally, the very next semester, I got a 4.0. The very next semester, I met the woman that would become my wife. Literally, and then I realized something very powerful, at least to me, that there really is no such thing as a problem. We all have problems. So look, it's not about trying to remove problems from my life, because there's nobody on earth that doesn't have problems. And in my head, that changed problems to tests. And now my job is to pass the test. And once I realized that, I wanted to help other people get on a healing journey so they could pass their tests too. I think a lot of us get into this mentality where it's I want to fix what's wrong with us. But there's no perfect person on the planet. And probably the most beautiful thing I ever learned or realized was that what that must mean, if there's no perfect person on the planet, that must mean there's no perfectly imperfect person either. So that means every single person has some brilliance. And maybe life is about trying to find the brilliance that my father hid from me. And if my father tried to hide my brilliance, there are other people who have people in their life trying to hide theirs. So I wanted to help other people uncover their brilliance.
Man, I got to do one quick follow-up. Elliott is an amazing psychotherapist. I've had quite a few sessions with him, but is that how you came up with solution-focused therapy?
No, I actually didn't come up with solution-focused therapy. It's been around for about 50 years or so, but so much of psychotherapy is about figuring out what's wrong with you and helping you deal with it. And I just didn't associate with that. When I went to graduate school and started learning about psychotherapy, I couldn't associate with that. And then in this one corner of this one book, there was this literally 2 pages about solution-focused brief therapy, and I was like, this is aligning with my journey, and this is what I want to do. In graduate school, they tell us things that are just weird to me. Like, for example, that we should be trying to fix people's problems, but as I just said, we all have problems. So if you try to fix your problem, you're gonna spend the rest of your life paying really close attention to what's wrong with you, and you're never gonna figure it out. And I found this thing, and everybody told me you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't do it. I've been to 30 countries teaching people how to do solution-focused brief therapy. I've written 5 books. I'm working on TV shows, podcasts. Like, if you talk about hope and love, like, people will listen. And for me, that was the only approach that spoke to that.